The following content is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition.
Hello, everybody. My name is Marina Sprocki, and I'm the host of Always Another Way podcast. I have a master's in professional counseling, and I am the IPI award-winning author of Stop Looking for a Husband, Find the Love of Your Life, and Nasty Divorce, A Kid's Eye View. I write positive divorce advice for the HuffPost, and I'm trained in clinical hypnosis. And this podcast speaks to out-of-the-box thinkers, and it's for those who hear the call of hope and always another way. And if you're very rigid and set in your beliefs, this is probably not your cup of tea. However, you should note, tastes can and do change. And just a reminder, if you have not, please subscribe to Always Another Way podcast on wherever you listen to your podcast. It just helps all of these episodes go higher. And then if you would, if you like what you've heard, share it. If you're on Facebook, share it to your page, share it to a friend, share it in a message. I appreciate you so very much. And today we are going to talk about something super duper important, like can change the world stuff. We're going to be talking about how not to fuck up your kids. And before we begin, this huge disclaimer, we're not blaming anybody, we're not shaming anybody, we're not judging anybody, because there are no perfect parents, not one. Myself included, and my guest. But anyways, Houston, we have a problem, and it starts at home. Nobody gets instructions when they have a baby. I know I didn't get that book. You got instructions on how to feed the baby, how to diaper the baby, but not about how to safeguard their emotional health. So, a few things just to start. Authoritarian parenting is research proven to be harmful. And if you don't know what that is, authoritarian style is do what I say because I said so. End of story. Authoritative, on the other hand, which is recommended, is you have to do this, and I'll tell you why, or we're open to discussion. Don't touch that stove because it's hot. And I'm okay telling you that. And we can talk about it even though I might still have the final say. That's authoritative because obviously child development, children's mindset and their capabilities are different than adults. But knowing that distinction, secondly, the biggest bad thing you can do to your kids falls under the umbrella of domestic violence. And domestic violence is just not physically hitting. And I just want to read a few statistics for you before we bring on my guest and we really dive into this. But did you know that 4,774,000 women in the U.S. experience physical violence by an intimate partner every year? And that's just physical. I'm not talking about the people who maybe somebody's never laid a finger on them, but they're not afraid to throw a glass and smash it right by their face. That's domestic violence too. Or just verbally assault everyone in the house without laying a finger on them. So just maybe triple that number. Each year, 2 million injuries and 1,300 deaths are caused as a result of domestic violence. 3 women are murdered every day by an intimate partner in the U.S. And domestic violence can negatively impact a woman's mental and physical health over the long term, and her children's mental well-being is also at risk of long-term damage. That is also a research-proven fact. And it's common for domestic violence victims to experience a loss of productivity, decreased earning potential, and reduction in overall financial security. Domestic violence is not just physical. It can be sexual, psychological, emotional, and financial. Digital abuse and stalking also count. And the other big research bomb to drop before we talk about these very, very bad behaviors that can fuck up your kids is the largest study that was done by the CDC and Kaiser Permanente, is the ACEsTooHigh study. You can Google that and read it all, but I just want to give you just like a few tidbits from the top. That study and subsequent surveys show that most people in the U.S. have at least one ACE, and an ACE is an adverse childhood experience, and that people with 4 ACEs, including living with an alcoholic parent, racism, bullying, witnessing violence outside the home, physical abuse, emotional abuse, and losing a parent to divorce, have a huge risk of adult onset chronic health problems such as heart disease, cancer, diabetes, suicide, and alcoholism. So there's that. The brain science, which is the neurobiology of toxic stress, shows that toxic stress caused by ACEs damages the function and structure of kids' developing brains. Health consequences, how toxic stress caused by ACEs affects short and long-term health. It can impact every part of the body, leading to autoimmune diseases such as arthritis, heart disease, breast cancer, and lung cancer. And by the way, all the stuff I'm reading comes from that ACEsTooHigh website and their research. So this is not my opinion. I'm reading their facts that they've put together. But, and one more bad news. Historical and generational trauma, which are the epigenetic consequences of toxic stress, and how toxic stress caused by ACEs can alter how our DNA functions and how that can be passed down from generation to generation. So that's the bad news, but there is some good news. There's resilience, research, and practice. And because we talk about these issues, allows us to then be able to do something about them. Because building on the knowledge that the brain is plastic and the body wants to heal, this part of the ACE science includes evidence-based practices, as well as practice-based evidence by people, organizations, and communities that are integrating trauma-informed and resilience-building practices. So, and one other thing I just want to have you think about as we talk about this. It's coming to the end of the summer. Unless you live in Texas, it's the summer for maybe 2 more months. But I've seen so many posts lately about people just, as they should be, but up in arms because somebody's left a dog in a hot car. And 9 times out of 10, this dog hasn't died, but somebody sees this dog in a hot car, and there's posts everywhere, and they're freaking out, as they should be. But what about you're in a store, and you see somebody come, and a 4-year-old throws a tantrum, and somebody backhands them, a defenseless 4-year-old? Why isn't there equal outrage and anger at that? Because that happens more than the dog in a car. And I would like to think that we value human lives just as much as we value animal lives. So how do we get involved when somebody backhands a 4-year-old in a store? And it doesn't take a genius or a scientist to know that a defenseless small human is no match for an adult in the physical power of this, nor does physical violence or shaming accomplish anything positive. So, there is only shame in willful ignorance, and it's time to turn the tide, because there's always another way to do things. And my guest is turning the tide, doing things another way. Arundel Bell Hunter is a stay-at-home mother, which is one of the hardest jobs there is, if you don't know about that. She was born in Navasota, Texas in 1979. She went to the Episcopal School of Dallas and graduated in 1997. She went to a couple different colleges and graduated with a television degree from Southern Methodist University in 2005. Arundel then moved to Los Angeles to pursue her career as a television producer for talk and reality television. And after 4 years, she moved back to Dallas to work in television, public relations, social media, nonprofit fundraising, and as a writer, and that is where she met the love of her life. She married her husband in October 2013, and then she embarked on a journey of motherhood and has never turned back. As a mother of 2 and a wife in Dallas, she has an open, happy, on-the-go, and honest approach to parenting and changing the cycle of life for her children. Arundel is a 40-year-old hot wife to George Hunter and an awesome mother to Ben, who is 4 years old, and Eleanor, 6 months. And welcome to the show, Arundel.
Thank you, Marina, for having me. I appreciate you having me today.
You're welcome. And can I tell you just one thing that I just really like about you,
Yes.
which is just the show of just how cool she is that Arundel, she's like, do you see that I put hot wife in my bio? I was like, yeah, I saw that. And I knew you would, because you have this wonderful confidence that is 0% cocky, but just 100% just self-love, and you just beam, and you have the kindest heart.
Oh, thank you very
And
much.
I mean,
appreciate it.
that's what makes the world go round.
Oh, thank you very much.
I just love it.
Well, I love being your friend, so I thank you too, and knowing your family and things like that. So it's pretty wonderful. But, I just thank you for that, because it's an everyday struggle. I mean, you have to wake up and have a positive. There's so much negative that you have to say, you know what, today I'm going to be happy. Today I'm going to be happy towards my children. Today I'm going to be a good wife. I mean, it's a daily.
Because it's hard.
Absolutely.
Kids are,
Absolutely.
it's really hard. I mean, we were all kids and babies. It's a
Yes.
rough crowd. It's tough.
I mean, I see, I now look at my mom and my dad and what they went through, and how, I was probably a little bit, harder on them because I wanted, to know how to be a kid and everything like that. But I look at them, and now with being a mother, now I know why my mom went to sleep so fast at night, because you're tired, you're exhausted from parenting, you're exhausted from life, and you just have to wake up every day and try to be a better person every day.
Right. And I just want to let everybody know, as we're talking about different things, and we're going to share stories from different people. We're not dropping any names of anybody. So it's the stories, and we're not going to say who it is, because we're not trying to throw anybody under the bus, because that's not how people get better.
That's not how to be positive.
It's
either.
not how to be positive, but we're just going to talk about the experience and the thing that happened, not saying who it is, but not good. But let's start first with, because even though I do know some people who have said that they specifically, I know like at least 5 people that are not having children because of their parents, because their experience was so bad that they are choosing not to procreate.
Which is sad, because, as this, the topic today is, you can change the cycle of what
You
the
totally
parent-
can.
It takes work. It takes a village too. It takes the right people to be around them. It takes the right energy, and you have to want to do it. It's not just, I'll just do it for a couple days. It's an everyday thing.
Yes. And also with that, I was thinking about, and I'm a therapist too. And so people like to say people are doing the best that they can. But I don't believe that, because I know for a fact, sometimes I know what's better, and I'm just like, fuck it. I'm just going to do what I want to do. I'm not doing the best I can. I have no better, and I've chosen to not do better.
Right.
So there's that. And but that being said, I think a lot of people are doing the best that they can, and we're all gonna like go sideways and do some bad stuff that's not right. I've gone on yelling and screaming rants, and then later have had to reel it in. We'll talk about that. But what are 2 things that you can say, like from your upbringing, that you really liked? Just so we start on like a high note. Like, what did you like that your parents did, or something that they did that you can look back on and say you enjoyed it?
I personally, I came from a 2-parent family, and I was very lucky to have that with a brother, and they were still together and still married. It still are today. One of the things I liked about them is we went to church. My dad was a preacher. We had a very, that was our basis of everything. But with that being said, it wasn't pushed into our face. My parents wanted us to discover faith on ourselves. They gave us stories. We talked about faith. We talked about Jesus. We had those open conversations. I think that was a big, I would say it's a foundation.
Yeah.
It wasn't. Now, I'm not saying this is for everybody's foundation, but it worked for our family. So one of the things I liked was going to church, and then going to lunch with my family afterwards, and being with them. So being together was a very big thing for our family. That was one of the things I loved to be. Another thing I loved is my mom and dad really wanted me to be myself. They didn't push me to be one thing. They didn't push me to be...
like, you got to be a Dr. Arundel.
No. They were just like, we want you to be Arundel. I remember having this poster in my room that said, it's okay to be you. And it was this cheesy it had a rabbit on it, but I woke up every day to that. And it was basically ingrained in my head. It's okay to be you. It's okay to be the person that you want to be, strive to be. You're going to mess up, but that's how you become the person that you're going to be. So I think that like my parents gave me a lot of self-confidence in that kind of realm of being myself.
Yeah, and let's just go with that, like to be you, and then diving into a bad behavior. When you are telling your child that they cannot be themselves, like I want to be an artist, and as a parent, if you are, and maybe you're coming from a good place, like not a lot of artists, it's hard. It's a harder profession. You know what I mean? Has maybe told things like that, but to automatically like poo-poo somebody's dreams from the get-go and not allow somebody to be themselves, or maybe you're a boy and you like to paint your nails or do something that's not traditionally gender defined, but to be like cut off from parts of yourself.
Well, I think what you talked about being an authoritarian parent and how crucial that is being an telling them like, oh, I don't want you to be an artist. I don't want you to do this. I don't want you to explore that. I kind of came to this part, and my husband says this all the time, we're not here to crush dreams.
Yeah. Oh, right. Don't be a dream crusher.
Don't be a dream crusher. And so you really want them to explore that. And not, be careful how you explore it, of course, because you don't want to overextend yourself and overextend your child into it. But let them try those kind of things. I think that if they want to be an artist, do a couple classes, and go with them, encourage it. And if you see them tapering off and doing it, maybe it's time to do something else, but let them stick with it for a whole year. That's one thing I'm very big on. If it's a whole year of soccer or a whole year of art, they have to do a whole year of it because that's the activity. I mean, that's it.
And you're teaching a little bit of commitment with that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, another thing that I think is if they don't like it, hopefully you have a conversation with them. Like, my son and I have did you like it? Did you have fun today? How was it? Do you want to go back? If they start saying no, then you ask them, why do you want it? So it's communication with your children. So I think that's, a positive thing to say, I want you to try this. I want you to succeed in this. Let's try it together.
Just like the role of just conversation like that. And so those are some good things. Now let's kind of dive into talking about, and then we're just going to talk about experiences that like you've seen growing up, like what we've seen with our friends' parents, or just like witnessing in school. Maybe some of them came from our house, maybe they didn't, or even now we have children, what we see with other people. But so let's dive into the first one that we talked about, which was under that realm of domestic violence. Yeah. So that is physical abuse, it is emotional abuse, financial abuse, it is shaming, it is blaming, it is triangulation. Yeah. Let's talk about some things that you've like heard and seen, and because I like to think that sometimes when we just use blanket terms like that, somebody will say, oh, abuse, like I wasn't abused. But then you dive in a little further, I'm like, well, if you were really afraid of a parent, really afraid of a parent, that's abuse. Yeah. Like you shouldn't be afraid of somebody. Now, of course, like you throw a baseball and you're just like unwittingly like, I'm just going to break the glass just cause, and somebody gives you, okay, there's consequences. Yeah. That's a natural thing to be fearful absolutely. Of that. Yeah. But you shouldn't be fearful of like, I spilt a glass of water.
Well, I think that, to be honest with you, I think things that I actually worked at a domestic violence shelter as one of my jobs before I was a stay-at-home mom. And I saw the extreme. I saw one night I was on the hotline and we had to bring a family in that the kid's face was burned by an iron, which was terrible. But the mother got out of it, and we were very, proud of her for getting out of that situation. I think one thing that I see a lot now is, as a parent and out, kind of, as I say, out in the field of being a parent, being at the playgrounds, being at the grocery store, being at things like that, I'm seeing a lot of physical frustration. Mm-hmm. When I say physical frustration, it's spanking.
Yes.
It is grabbing their hands, hurting their children they say they're trying to get their attention.
Uh-huh. And and I know how that is, because I've done that. I've squeezed a little hand, and and I don't want to, because you are out of control at that point. And so let's
Absolutely.
all admit that, like, the American Academy of Pediatrics says spanking is bad. So
And
research proven, but
and that's why I said frustration.
easy to go there because
It's because you're frustrated with your child.
child developmentally,
Yeah. And your kid, poor thing, is trying to process and trying to understand, and you really have to like. Don't
You
get me
gotta
wrong,
be the parent.
Yeah, I've spanked before, and he's deserved it. But that's when I have a trouble with it, because when I say he deserved it, does he really deserve it?
nobody deserves to be physically
Exactly.
hit. Yeah.
And so that's when I'm like, I talk a lot, and I've talked with you a lot about how do I, when I had a problem with my son, he was hitting me a lot because he was trying to get his frustration. So I was wondering, how do I correct him? So do I do a hit on a hit? Wrong. Basically, I was saying that's going to say, oh, it's okay for mom to hit you, but why is it okay not to hit mom?
Yeah.
So, and I always say to him, we never hit ladies, we don't hit anyone, period. And he repeats that back to me. So it's a language that we talk about, but it's also, I'm trying to set a boundary with him too, that hitting is not appropriate.
Yeah, and then let's all just admit it's super frustrating
Oh,
with
yes.
toddlers. I mean,
Yes.
really, they don't even have the age of reason, so they think everything's about them. So it's like being with a friend that's like, "F you, I'm right all the time, and I'm going to do what I want."
And I think
frustrating.
We've recently had a child in Dallas pass away because he was opening and playing with ketchup, and his father or his
Oh my God, yeah, I saw that
Cedric
story. Yeah.
Jackson, and he was basically beat to death because he was playing with ketchup packets. That right there, I've had horrible nightmares about that kid because that kid didn't even know what he was doing.
No.
And so that's where I am having a change in my cycle, because I was spanked. That was one of the things that
I mean, it was industry standard.
Yeah, I mean,
for,
and so,
from the 50s on.
And I said, and that was normal for parents to do that. I mean, belts, wooden spoons, I mean, whatever was available. But nowadays, as a parent, I'm seeing that is not right. And so I see myself trying to do something different to basically discipline my son. I'm either pulling him aside and making him breathe and calm down and wondering why he started this, why he got all basically worked up, or why he did something. What's his brain saying and how is he processing it? With basically figuring that out about my son, I'm seeing how to discipline him with. And that would be to put him into a room and say, what's going on with you?
Yeah, and to be able to
it down.
calm down
Yes.
yourself. And that's what's
And
like.
saying to yourself, not yelling at him like, you need to calm down, you need to do this. No, you're saying, I'm here for you. Hugging him, making him feel secure in what's his emotion, and letting him go through his emotions. I don't think our families let us go through emotions because they were having the authoritarian display of parenting.
And nobody's told that. Like, so at the hospital, they don't say, you're going to get to a time where you're
Absolutely.
going to, because I've said it quietly, like, calm down. They're like, calm down, and you go like nuts. So I'm out of control. They're out of control. It's not a good scene. You know what I mean? For anybody.
And you really need to check yourself. And you know what? I think it's good to check other parents when they're
like, hey, it's totally overwhelming.
like-
I get you. You want to
and
drop kick.
also you want to and I've been at playgrounds, and I've been at supermarkets where I've seen parents get out of control, and I grab the parent's hand and I say, breathe. And I say it to them too, because they are getting so worked up, and it's really not, and you have to be very careful with that, because it is their parenting, because you have to respect other people's parenting. That's what we've been told as a parent.
But you know what I mean? Do you
But when
respect
there-
abuse?
But when there is some physical abuse happening, or there's even verbal abuse, I check them with my eyes. I'm like, Mom, chill out. Like, I will say that. I don't care what people have to, like if they're like, oh, lady, if they want to deck me, fine. It's taking the deck or the hit off the child. But I'm saying it is not right. So I'm saying we need, as parents together, if you're going to be a parent,
It's
parent
super
the-
hard.
but
Like,
parent the right
don't
way.
have kids.
Yeah, don't have kids if you don't know how to parent. Or if you don't know how to parent, ask other parents that you have.
you need help.
Or, like I say.
I mean, everybody needs help.
everybody
Not
needs
like
help,
you
but I mean,
need
like,
help, but-
ask other parents that you see out there that you're like, you know what, you're a really good parent. Or I liked how you did that. How did you get to that? Or how did you come up with that way? Now, let me tell you, we always mess up. And I read one book when I started parenting. It was about sleep because I like to sleep. But and we've been flying by the seat of our pants since. But at the same time, I really think about how I discipline my children because of the long-term effect. Meaning, not even just but I'm building their self-confidence. I'm building their self-worth. I'm building them for not just their future, but for the world. I want to better the world, so I have to better my child.
Right, because kids don't get to a point where we have an epidemic problem of domestic violence, which are people that are out of control. You clearly cannot control anything if you're hitting and terrorizing everybody around you. You have lost all sense of control.
Absolutely.
So there's that. And then school shoot, like all these things that happen is because people are out of control in their emotions. And, and that being said, there's no conflict resolution classes in school like as little kids where you need to know it, because I've been, extremely reactive, like at times, like, because I kind of grew up with that, and you just like, it becomes a temperament. And,
but it also becomes a habit.
It becomes a habit that sometimes it's just like your go-to. I mean, I would go to like 0 to like flip out.
Right.
But then internally, like for me, I can say as somebody who was on that bad end, like I'm frustrated because I don't want to be out of control.
Yeah.
It sucks. I want to be like the Zen master of like
you
calm emotions.
You set out to be, a really good parent every morning, but the dog eats your breakfast, or the food falls on the floor, or you lose a sock, everywhere. Or they don't put on their shoes or something dumb like that. Excuse me. I'm so sorry, y'all. Yeah. But I think that you really have to work at this. I mean, if you see yourself immediately going to the spanking or the yelling, I mean, you're really out of control yourself. And you really have to think, why am I here? What are the outside things that are coming in that are hurting me? Why am I putting that on a kid? Because the kids are just innocent people. They really are. And you have to think of that because you're really bringing your insecurities, your problems on them. Don't do that.
And you're teaching them how to be treated.
Yes, absolutely.
So if you're teaching them that, one, they don't matter, that they are to shut up and not speak, and there's a really good book on that with research about authoritarian parenting. It's called Parenting with Love and Logic. And I'm also research proven of that. If you don't let your children make choices, just like rule them, as soon as they walk out the door, not only are they going to make choices, they're going to make bad choices because they're just dying to say yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Been there, done that.
I mean, we've all been there and done that because, not
that you just don't do that too, even if you have regular
parents. Right, you're
parents.
also pushing your boundaries and things like that. But I think that, with the rise of domestic violence, I think we're seeing more and more situations that could be stopped if you really just stop yourself. And as a parent, cool off.
Yeah. And so now I'm wondering, now that we say this, like, okay, so we both like, see things and are willing to check ourselves, like, hey, and I've even done that to my kids, like just lost it, screaming and yelling, and then had to come back around like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. That was like crazy. Like I shouldn't have been out of control. You guys were out of control too. Like it's not that back and forth, but how could we work together in harmony?
Yeah. I mean,
so we can all be cool.
I think another thing is to, just open up communication with your children. I mean, really not just, hey, how was your day? Like, who was there today? Were they nice to you today? I mean, those kind of conversations that need to happen. I think people get in the car after school, and I mean, you and I are going to go pick up our kids right after this. And what do you say to your child and when they get in the car? Do you make them feel like they're worth something? Right. Do you give them value? Do you give them a speaking word? Yeah. Or are you just getting in the car and then you just talk to them and then it's over?
Yeah, I don't want to hear you.
I don't want to hear you. Be quiet.
And then think about those so let's dive into words and verbal abuse in parenting. Yeah. How, and I'll just give an example. I'll throw myself under the bus on something. How we don't know always what our words mean things. And so my daughter was doing this cheer thing that we were going to, and it's kind of a pain in the ass driving. And then you had to like pay to go watch her. Yeah. I'm like, this is so dumb. And I was kind of bitching about it a lot. And then I thought, wow, this is something she really likes. And I'm just driving there bitching like, we got to pay to go in there. And this is so dumb. And it's so far away. And it's and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm turning into this like horrible Debbie Downer. Like, I don't want to be with somebody who's always like bitching and complaining about stuff. And then what message are you sending to your kids? So that's not abusive, but it's just on a pay attention to what you're doing. But let's dive into the really bad abusive stuff that maybe you don't know when you discount kids or tell them a body shame them about their weight or their intelligence or things like that.
Well, let's definitely start with body shaming. I think that we start from the very get-go of, when you're a baby. I mean, I'm going through it right now. You're so cute. You're the cutest baby, da-da-da. Well, and then I'm looking at her little thighs, and I'm like, oh, they're so cute and squishy. I hope she keeps her thighs for the rest of it. And then they turn 13, and then the body shaming and everything starts. And I went through a lot of body shaming. I went through a lot of personal bullying because of my weight. So what I have done is change the cycle. I don't want my child or my daughter or my son to feel like there's anything wrong with their body. We are very open. I mean, I sing a little song with my son. Look at that summer body. And he takes his shirt off and I'm like, yeah, baby, giving him some confidence. I think a lot of it is the way you talk to your child about their personal body, not just like, oh, this is your arm, this is your body parts and the private stuff. I think you really need to talk about, do you know what being fat brings, or do you know what being skinny brings? Do you know,
or not those words, fat or skinny?
Yeah, but I mean, do you? But they're going to have to be faced with those
healthy
and not happy. But you're going to have to use those slang words because they're going to hear it.
Yeah,
I think asking their definition of what they think of that kind of stuff. Do you see because one thing I really don't want my son to say to somebody is, you're fat.
Right.
I don't want him to ever say that.
Because that hurts.
That hurts. Mm-hmm. I want him to say, he says it this morning when he got out of the car, to the people getting him out for carpool, I like your necklace. You look pretty today. It made her whole day. And she said, I love getting you in the morning because you always say something nice. But Ben has said something nice about himself. Like this morning, that's my son's name is Ben. Mm-hmm. We did his hair and he goes, my hair looks good. So it's a little self-confidence. I think about him talking to himself and saying stuff. So his inner dialogue to himself is positive. And I think that if I can instill that into him and have a positive outlook on him, that he won't body shame himself. Neither will my daughter when she starts kind of doing this stuff. I think that hurt a lot when I was younger. It changed. I always felt like I was always on a diet. I was bullied at school. I was bullied, at home too. Sometimes with you're not.
And everybody's personality is different. You're a quite resilient bouncer backer.
Right.
But it doesn't mean you didn't struggle. But some kids, that stuff,
stays with you.
Suicide is the second leading cause of death,
and
13 to 21.
I have to say, when I was 13 and I was at my biggest kind of weight, I did think about suicide because of that. I think that, that was my extremeness of it.
Well, also you have a 13-year-old brain and everything,
but
goes
that
way.
Happens now, and with the school shootings and things, you're going to an extreme. You're not just thinking about suicide. You're thinking about killing masses of people now because you're feeling bullied.
Yeah.
I think our talking about bullying is great, but I think now you have to have an inner talk with yourself. An inner talk really, am I going to hurt other people because of something that's hurting me? And that's where I think the body shaming and changing the cycle, you really need to have the positive talk with, is it right or is it wrong?
And how do you deal with emotions as a kid if you were never taught how to?
And that's the thing I think with parenting that I'm trying to talk about. I talk about a lot with
I wasn't taught about. Nobody was taught that.
Nobody was talked about.
Here's what you do when you're mad. Shut up, or I'll give you something.
Or basically, nobody was ever taught. Hey, don't go into a school and shoot up things because you're mad. We were never talked about that.
Or just what to do, usually anger is a thing that people shove away, and I remember instantly, or crying, little kids don't cry. So you're shutting down, so people are automatically.
You weren't allowed to show your emotions.
Yeah, hide it, and that's not good.
And not good. And now I feel like as a parent now, I want my son to go through these emotions. I want my
There's
daughter.
a healthy way to let out that anger.
Absolutely.
Without hurting others.
Absolutely. But I also want him to to learn how to control his anger and to learn how to deal with the issues that are coming to him and deal with the emotions, because he's going to be an adult, and I don't want him flailing on the ground and having a temper tantrum because he can't get a Coke out of the Coke dispenser.
Right, or you're bullying other people
or you're
because you
bullying
can't
others
regulate.
because you can't get it. So I think, as I've heard, and I know you've talked about this, at the age of 5, you have your kids set of their personalities so you have 5 years of being 7. Excuse me, now 7.
5, 7,
but,
whatever.
But you have these years that you have to be an example to your child. You have to be a parent, not their friend. You need to be there to stand by them and show them and teach them compassionately, but not bully them into learning something or giving them some kind of thing that hurts them, because they're learning too.
Yeah, so compliant children that are afraid, they may be compliant, but let me tell you, if you're only making them comply because they're afraid that they're going to get smacked or hurt, not good.
Yeah.
Not good.
And I think that a lot of children today fear their parents.
I totally did.
Because I did. I feared my grandmother. Because they spanked. But then you learn that's all they knew.
Yeah, that's true. That's all.
That is really all they knew.
Skills,
and they didn't have what we have today, which is the choice.
And it was told that, and there's still people today that are like, I'm spanked and I was fine. And you're like, really? You regulate your emotions?
But I think nowadays with what we have as knowledge and books and this wonderful podcast, that there's always another way to do it. We have a choice.
For sure.
And I think that you do not have to continue this cycle. It is your job as a parent to change how you want your parenting or how your child wants to be in life.
And then let's talk about how, so if somebody is in, and we'll keep going with this words, but let's say somebody, because I've actually had quite a few clients and a few calls from different people that I know that are in situations at home where there is one person in the household who is verbally abusing people. So they're not physically touching anyone, but they are extremely verbally abusive and controlling. It's like walking on eggshells. So what advice would you give to somebody who's in that situation? And I know because it's super hard because people don't start out that are verbal abusers. We've talked about abuse before on this podcast several times. Nobody starts out just calculatedly abusing. People have good qualities and bad qualities to them. But if you are in a house where you are being ruled by one person's mood, that's super bad and damaging for you, for them, because that person doesn't like themselves, obviously. If you can't control your mood and you just have to bully people to get compliance and then nobody likes you, what kind of life is that?
I think my advice
for anybody.
I think my advice would to be seek out some sort of safeguard for you, a safe place for you, if you have children involved in it too. There's many facilities, many therapy. I definitely think you need to get therapy
because it's not normal and it's
not
not right.
normal. It's not. If you feel hurt or you feel fearful, that's not good.
Not good.
Your house is supposed to be your safe place. You're supposed to have a safe haven. That is your house where you live. It could be anywhere. It could be an apartment. It could be your car. It could be a house. It could be anywhere on the street, but it's your house. And wherever you are together as a family, that is your home. I think that if you do not feel safe or you feel like somebody is hurting your safe place, seek out other things like a domestic violence shelter if you need, a therapy, a friend. Even just talking to a friend and telling them that something is wrong with you is helping, because hopefully they will help you. I think that another advice would to be to really think if it really is that hurtful too. Is it just, is it just like a sarcastic? You got to really think about some of this stuff.
If it happens once or twice,
it's one off.
If it's consistently happening,
that's what I was trying to get to. Like if it's a consistent hurt, then yes, you definitely need to get out. It definitely needs to be talked about and and you need to realize something's wrong with you because you're letting this happen. Take on the blame too, because you're letting this.
Can I agree to disagree with you on taking
Well,
the blame?
but I have to say if you're also consistently letting this happen in front of children, if they're letting this happen to you and you're not doing anything about it, you might.
Well, and this is why people don't do things about it. It's because they're extremely scared.
Yeah,
and like
fear.
and so
the fear again. We go back to the fear.
Yeah, I've been in that, and so to be that, so we'll do the no blamey of anybody.
But
That's cool to go back.
But I mean, like, I think you also need to say, am I ready to do this?
Am I ready to do this?
Because I mean, one of the first things in domestic violence is you have to get yourself out of the situation. You have to remove yourself physically, emotionally, everything. That's the first thing they tell you when you walk into the shelters. When you walk into the therapy, are you ready to get a plan to get out? I think that
because those people categorically really don't change.
Exactly. And as much as you try to change, you're not changing.
And the cycle just continues. And really, I think that if we had more classes in high school for boys and girls about dating and about toxic behavior, because it starts then, and then, I mean, teenagers learn that because they learn it from their parents if that's the tactic they see going on in their
again,
house.
I go back to the example as parenting. You're showing your kids how to date, how to have a relationship, what their examples of a relationship are. If you're having a toxic situation, they're going to be in that same cycle because that's all they know.
That's all they know.
That's all they know. And they need another way. So, but I think that, point being, I think that, you really can change the cycle if you want to change it. Now, it has to be an everyday battle too, and an everyday struggle, because there's days that I don't want to parent. I don't want to get up. I want to just sit there and watch Bravo TV all day or whatever. You can't do that. You still have to get up. I've been recently sick with some issues, and I've still had to get up and be a parent and do the same.
And then how do you do that when you're like, because that's true too, that we do have bad days where we're overwhelmed, and that's when things are going to digress.
Yeah,
you know
absolutely.
what I mean?
And digress quickly.
And when you don't have good sleep, and especially with little kids, I mean, that just starts you off, on the wrong foot. To make it more open for people that you're going to be, if you already know you're waking up or you're ill or have chronic pain or all these issues, you're going to be a little bit behind already. How do you tell yourself, man, I really want to drop, kick, yell, scream, whatever, the things that you can feel with kids, but why I don't, even if I'm feeling bad? Well,
I think that, again, you have to talk to yourself and pep yourself up. This morning, for example, I really, it's a rainy day, and I love to stay in bed on rainy days and snuggle with my children. No, I had to get up and get ready for this beautiful podcast. But I think, and this doesn't happen all, at one time. But I think you have to realize, I mean, I sit there and I basically am my own cheerleader every morning. Get up, Arundel. You have to be a good mom today. You have to be a good wife. You have to be a good friend.
You're such a good friend.
Oh, thank you, Marina. But I really, I want to be that kind of person.
And a good mama.
Oh,
and a
thank
good
you.
wife.
But I really want to be that person. And I think that if you have that kind of internal conversation with yourself, that you want to be a good person and define yourself as what good is and be that example. Not just talk, as we say, don't just talk the talk, walk the walk, and do that. I surround myself with really positive moms and husbands and dads, and we talk about parenting and how we can be better parents and how we do things, because I want a really good society for my children. I really want a good America. I really want a good world when I'm not here.
Yeah.
Because I'm raising two a boy and a girl. There we go. I'm going to be throwing them to some serious wolves soon after they are adults, and I want them to be equipped and powerful enough to know what is right and wrong.
Right. Don't we all want to live in a better world where people are polite and nice and
it'd be wonderful if we didn't have Twitter. I just have to say, it takes away a lot, but I love Twitter. I do have to say it's entertaining, but I do have to say, I feel like society now is all about blaming.
Well, yeah, we've digressed to almost a toddler mentality of this, and I've done it too. So guilty,
Yeah.
but want to do better. And so, like, how do we open it up for people who, like, okay, let's say you are, like, you're spanking left and right, you're shaming and blaming, like, no, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, you know, all these things, and you want to change. How do you open up as a former, like, hey, I've done things that I'm not proud of. I didn't have the skills. I wish I would have done better. Or maybe I knew better, but I just couldn't help myself, you know, but I want to do better. How do we let people in without just telling them, like, geez, you really, like, you fucked up that kid?
Well, I think that, you know, you don't go in a negative way. Like, if I was seeing, let's say I was seeing something wrong with you and your parenting, I would, and let's say I didn't even know you.
Yeah.
I would introduce myself. I've done this on the playground. I've seen the mom that has yelled and cussed at their child because they lost their shoe. I mean, it was really an awful situation because all the other kids were hearing all this stuff. And my son was like, oh, that's sad. My husband is, or that my kid is getting upset. And I stopped the mom. I said, hi, I'm Arundel. Are you doing okay today? Do you need something to eat? Came down to basically she was fighting with her husband.
I wonder how she reacted.
And she started talking to me and she's like, thank you for stopping me. And she thanked me. Now, again, you have to be very careful.
Because not everybody like that.
Not everybody's going to be like that. But she needed to be stopped and say, are you okay? Is there something going on with you that you need to just say, I need to talk about a situation or something that's happened to me, because it's showing to your kids and it's going past of what was going on between you and your husband.
Yeah.
So I think it's another way to just help people stop, breathe, and say, you know what, I'm concerned about you.
Yeah. And if you're listening out there and you want to comment or ask us, you know, what do you do? So we know now, you see the dog in the car, call the police, call that.
Yeah.
People are just, they got that covered. We know what to do with a dog in the car. What do you do when you see a child getting backhanded, hit, cussed at, yelled at, and screamed, which is really bad for them? And you know, if it's going on that way in public, it's way worse at home. You know, and you can't solve everybody else's problems and just jumping in on that, probably not good. They're going to get beat up worse when they get home. But how do we open conversations to people, to talk to our neighbors, to our friends, to say, hey, how do we talk about this stuff? And bring it up to people so that it can make a change where we stop this
Cycle
of crap.
Yeah, cycle of fucking your kid up, because
Yeah.
you really are, in the long run, and as studies show, you really are hurting them in the long run by just minor or very big things like hitting or saying certain things. So really think and really stop, breathe, be sure you're okay that before you start doing physical, verbal abuse.
Yeah.
And emotional too. Let's not forget that
Because,
one too.
and the good news, people are resilient.
Yeah.
I mean, very, very resilient, but let's just stop the train wrecks on the way. So if I didn't have to like roll into abuse and alcohol, like, and all this other stuff, and just could sail to somewhere better,
Yeah.
we can do better.
Well, and I think, you know, also too, with this conversation, I think that you can also have conversations with your friends, saying, "Are you okay? Are you having something that's happening in your home?" Just start being a neighbor. Just start being a friend. Not just how your outfit's cute. Start talking real about them. Like, is things okay with you?
All right, let's end on that, because you know that there is always another way.